Right, let's see what's concerning Arsenal Football Club today. Now, we've been hearing about Mendy probably for years, very aggressively for the last few months, and extremely aggressive in the last 72 to 48 to 24 hours. You would have seen the BBC Sammy Mokbel say Mendy is scheduled to have a medical for Arsenal. You would have seen some isms and schisms about a delay in the deal because of some accounting stuff that Sociedad are going through. They want this deal to fall into a certain sort of financial year. We covered that in the last video. Check that out. But apparently, the Athletic are saying Arsenal are beginning to make arrangements for Martin Zubimendi's medical and visa. The club should then be in a position to announce the signing very soon. Now, if we look at the bulk, or I assume which is the bulk of the article, that segment that we just saw came from, Arsenal mailbag, Zubimendi latest, Wanieri, Lewis Skelly contracts, Martinez links. What Martinez? Are they talking about Emi Martinez, the Turo Martinez, and ex Martinez? I don't know, but let's find out, people. Big up the journalists and all of that. I'm just trying to get to what the meat of the article is. Pardon me. Now, actually, let's start with existing players. Will Gabriel and Gabby and Timber recover in time for pre-season? What is the plan with Kyle Hein? When will the Martin Zubimendi deal be finalized? The exact recovery schedule for both players is unknown at this point. I'd say if they're ready for the start of pre-season, they've surpassed expectations. Ooh, well, that's not what you want to hear. You want Gabriel Magalhaes and Timber to be fit. Obviously, they're scheduled to come back when you come back, and it's never a good time to get injuries. It's never a good time to get injuries in what will be a World Cup season, 2025-26. Obviously, as footballers or as fans, we know footballers always say the worst time to get injuries or have any little niggles and things like that is pre-season, because you're essentially playing catch up, and it's a bit different. But you look at someone like Declan Rice, who hasn't had really a rest in the last couple of years. He spoke about, mentally more than anything, wanting to recharge, and how I think he was decent, more like 5-6 out of 10 in the first half of the season. Then obviously in the second half, the business end, you saw the games against Real Madrid and everything else when he's into the groove of things. But you're back fit when you're back fit. Gabriel Magalhaes and Gabby and Timber, nothing but respect for you and the whole wider spectrum of these Arsenal players. I always say it, I feel the players have been let down by the club, people. So yeah, moving away from that, they surpassed expectations. Timber's literally just undergone surgery. The club are calling it a minor procedure, but they use similar language around Benjamin White in November, and he was out for months. So it's best to be conservative with our timelines. As for Gabriel, his injury was not straightforward, and they'll want to manage his comeback carefully to avoid any setbacks. Now, you look at someone like Jacob Kivior, who, not really exposed to that much first team football unless there's injuries or need be. He's always been linked with a move back to Italy or Italian clubs primarily, and that's still happening. And I'm not saying you should sell Kivior. I think you need to keep him for depth. But if we're talking about potentially raising funds and whatnot, he definitely shouldn't be the first to go out through the door. But when you look at everything, you can talk about getting rid of Gabriel Magalhaes. Some would say Kai Havertz, Zinchenko, Reece Nelson, Fabio Vieira, so on and so forth. And I'm not saying you're wrong. Clearly, we might have to hold on to a couple of those names and more to have a bigger squad, whether we like them or not. Obviously, we need to bring people in. And yeah, people might say, sell them, this and that. And that's great. And I'm not saying that's without claim. But people have got to want these players, whether it's because of injuries, whether it's because of wages, whether it's because of the transfer fee Arsenal might want, whether it's dependent on what the player wants to do. We're at the mercy of these many variables, where you look at Kivior. Not that I'm pocket watching, definitely earns a lot more than all of us, but his wages are not gonna mash up your budget. He's clearly got the most market, whether again speculation and actually buying players are two different things. We don't know if these rumors are true, but he's actually got a market or interested parties, and he probably, could get you a decent fee. But that's from a business point of view. From a footballing point of view, you clearly need to keep a man that's clearly getting first team football. You probably have to keep Kivior, and maybe sanctioning his exit is probably dependent on any recovery from these players, really and truly, man. Hopefully we get some players in. So it's not really nice to hear, and I do think it's a great point around Benjamin White and Gabriel Magalhaes and Timber. The hope is that both will be fit or near to start of next season, but these things are rarely linear, so I'd be very wary of making a clear prognosis. And it's obviously Magalhaes as well, but for Timber, because if he was fit, you probably would have went off to the Euros with Holland. Be nice to see you get that. Kyle Hein might keep him to be second, third choice. Probably best he moves on and goes and gets first team football. Karl Heinz played a full season in La Liga with Real Valladolid and remains under contract at Arsenal. He'd certainly offer an economic way of securing a backup for David Raya. Number three, third choice. I think it may come down to what Karl Heinz wants to do. After a year of first team football, I suspect it might be difficult to persuade him to come back as number two or number three. We have seen some rumours that those at the football club are concerned with his ball playing abilities. I'm not saying it's wrong, but football's mad, isn't it? And we live in a day and age of strikers, are arguably the first line of defense for teams. And when we're talking about goalies where they got to use this, we're talking about their ball playing ability. The Zubimendi deal is in its final stages. Arsenal are at a point where they're beginning to make arrangements for a medical and a visa. Once those elements are sorted, the club should be in a position to announce relatively soon. Equally, there's arguably no great rush. Arsenal are very confident they'll get their man. I fully expect Zubimendi to be Arsenal's first signing of the season. What do the clubs see in Havertz in terms of his squad role? Well, before reading this, I'm just going to say whether you like Kai or not, clearly Mikel Arteta has a lot of love for him. Clearly he's loved within the club. He's on big money and he was bought on a big transfer. He's got big wages. He ain't going anywhere anytime soon, people. For me, I know you can say, oh, he's squad player on those wages, and that might be true. But if there's anything we've learned, we need a squad throughout the course of the season. Now, where you're looking at the starting 11, if Arsenal want to get to where they want to get to, and give or take at this moment in time, you're having Raya in goal, assuming everybody's fit. Raya's in goal. You're Lewis Skelly at left back. Timber potentially at right back. Your centre halves are Magalhaes and Saliba, right? You've got Rice in the 8, whether we like it or not. It probably is Odegaard in the 10 or 8.5, what you want to refer to it as. Zubimendi, assuming he signs / Partey for that right-sided midfield role, right? You've then got Bukayo Saka. At this moment in time, leave the striker thing vacant, people, and leave the left wing thing vacant as well, people. But you can, if you want, put Marino or Havertz through the middle, or put Martinelli and Trossard. Now, if you look at that starting 11 to get to the next level, with the greatest of respect to Martinelli and Trossard and Kai Havertz, you can't. Our strongest team needs to have a clinical striker, and it needs someone that's a bit more of a goal getter and a lot higher level than Trossard and Martinelli. The Kais, the Marinos, Asterix playing up front and in midfield, to be fair. Martinelli and Trossard, these are squad players. Like, we need a squad. Again, the squad's been ran to the ground this season. People have ran back from injuries. People have been ahead of schedule. People have suffered recurring injuries. We've ran the players into the ground. And this is obviously, the players are the ones out there. I can criticize if they're good enough, the wages, why they're here, how Arteta is using them. They need help. They need help. The players have my respect this season. Arteta, I'm vexed at you not evolving the team, and you've made mistakes, but all right, you've done a lot of good as well, but you need to get over the line. The January period where we was begging for signings, park off Arteta and the players for a second and look at the club. I don't know who's saying what. I'm talking about the Cronkies and those that, you've got the players here, you've got Arteta there, and you've got, the executives. Obviously, Berta weren't here, but you've got the executives and you've got the owners. You lot told me everything. You didn't want to win trophies this year. You knew you was a shoo-in for top 4, but nonetheless, he's still seen as incredibly important to the team by Arteta and his staff. They really love the combination of physical, mental, and technical attributes he brings. My prediction is that whoever Arsenal sign, Havertz will start the season as first choice number 9 and probably play a lot more games there than many expect. As I said, squad, we're trying to compete in 4 competitions. When the season starts, it's 1 game a week. It's all great. Very quickly, it's 2 games a week. Even quicker than that, it's 3 games in 10 days. And then when the season's in full flow, there's injuries, there's suspensions, there's loss of form, there's many a dynamic. So you're going to need Kai. I wouldn't necessarily cry if he starts the season, but if you go and get your Sesko, your Gyokeres, naturally new signing, you want to see them play. Naturally, he's going to play a lot of games. We've got to remember, he just said it there, this journalist. That's his prediction, not necessarily a fact. Any truth in the stories suggesting Wanieri and Miles Lewis Skelly contract talks aren't going smoothly? They're probably going smooth, probably bumps. It is what it is. Naturally, from business, if you're a buyer, well, the club want to get you a new contract. The club obviously want to offer you a little less. If you're the player, you want a little more. I'm not saying this is the thing. What I would say for Miles Lewis Skelly and Wanieri, get your money. I think all of that for all the footballers in this day and age where there's mad TV rights, executives, etc. The players deserve everything they get. I think Arsenal will be confident of being able to secure contracts for both, given the players' connection to the club and the opportunities they've been granted this season. Skelly is a first-team regular. I can't see him having any objection to signing an extension, provided his terms are met. On Wanieri, I do think there's probably a more conversation to be had about how Arsenal foresee his development in the next 24 months or so. Do they want to continue using him on the wing or as an eight? I mean, Saka started at left back. Where is he now? And if you're a young player, of course, you want to, in Wanieri's case, you might want to be an eight. You might want to be a 10. The manager's spoken about nine. I think at this moment in time, you're seen as the next up for Saka on that right-hand side. You just need to get games. Obviously, from where he started this season to the minutes he's played and everything, he has to say, fair enough, you've played a lot of football, you've asserted yourself into the first team. I do think there was more scope to use Wanieri without knowing why he was or wasn't used, but that's naturally a good conversation. And I think Wanieri, you know what, there was a time he was probably on the cusp of getting that England call up. I'm sure Tuchel was saying you're close as well, so the only way to get that is football. And if the latter, is Arteta ready to trust such a young player in the centre of midfield? I do think, obviously with Lewis Kelly as well, but with Wanieri, there's a couple of things that are going against him, as they should. He's a young man, probably got what, 20 odd appearances for this football club. He's 18. He's still developing physically. You can see Lewis Kelly obviously doesn't rely on his strengths, but physically he's there. I think and a lot of that is in the gym. A lot of that is just waiting on Wanieri. Wanieri's got to grow physically, still growing into his body and all of that stuff. I actually think technically wise, I mean, you're playing Premier League football. Technically, like first touch, passing, shooting, one of the best finishers at the club. He's got all of that. I think Wanieri asks Arteta everything he asks is Martin Odegaard to do off the ball in that role that Odegaard does. Get up to speed with that, because that's arguably the only thing that's been keeping Wanieri out of that role, and obviously Odegaard in that. You get up to speed with that, Bob's your uncle. I don't really want to talk on Max Dolman, quality player, done it for England at the Euros, captain the under-18s, training with the first team, doing all that sort of stuff. But you got to take time. But I think the reason we're not going to sign somebody that's an out-and-out direct competitor for Odegaard in that role, in which in an ideal world, if you grab the striker, a left winger, maybe even two strikers in an ideal world, as I said, and two centre mids, you probably want to get someone that can take Odegaard out the firing line or compete. But I think we're keeping that pathway kind of open, people, if I'm honest. Arsenal took Wanieri out of the spotlight somewhat in the final weeks of the season. I'm sure they had their reasons, but he'll be desperate to play and will probably want assurances about how and when that game time will come before committing a deal. In relation to Emi Martinez, I can't see that happening. Raya has an excellent season and has had a very close relationship with goalkeeping coach Inaki Kanya. As we know, people, Martinez was sold in 2020. It says Kanya, he wasn't the desired profile for a goalkeeper. Never say never in football, but I think you can almost certainly save yourself some time and set this rumor to one side. I hear that. In relation to Fabio Vieira, my hot take is Fabio Vieira and Reece Nelson, one of them is going to stay. It just feels like one of them might hang about. But on Fabio Vieira, I think a signing like that arrives, it will be a wide forward position. There's been a lot of focus on positional needs at centre forward, holding midfielder, goalkeeper, etc. But the wide area is a part of the pitch with the greatest room for a wild card signing, in my opinion. Doesn't really say anything about Fabio, really and truly. Do you know of any names being linked as second choice goalkeepers or backup defenders? Feels like every summer I say Arsenal would like to sign a homegrown third choice keeper, and every summer they come up short too. I mean, are we going to go back for Dan Bentley, former Gooner and Wolves man? In the long term, and the Wigan keeper as well. In the long term, it's a spot in the squad Arsenal would like to fill. We need to go and get a Scott Carson, Tom Heaton guy for that then. Doing so would afford Tommy Setford the opportunity to go on loan, for example. But whether Arsenal get to it this summer, I just don't know. It's pretty low on the priority list, understandably. As for other names to riot, I've heard a couple, but none is confident or consistent as Espanyol's Garcia. Although it's worth noting, he now appears to be a man in demand, which Barcelona seem to be quite aggressive. I wonder whether Arsenal would suddenly find it difficult to persuade Garcia to come in as second choice when many other clubs are prepared to make him their number one. Of course, it's going to be difficult. Do you think the transfer budget will exclusively look at left forward or centre mid and goalkeepers? Arsenal are still scouring the market for a young centre half in the Dean Huyson mode. If they can find an appropriate target, they may bring one in to add more depth and future-proof the centre of defence. In relation to Isaac, Sesko, Gyokeres and all that stuff, hey, Matt, thoughtful question. I like it. I think Arsenal will sign a number 9 this summer. It's a position they've been looking at for some time, and the injury to Jesus is a contributing factor. Just like in January, he didn't do anything when Saka got injured. Only really heard rumblings when Gabriel Jesus got injured. And then I don't know what the club tried to do in the rumours. We'll never find out. But we was offered Ollie Watkins. We didn't go for him. So I wonder where it's all at. It's clear Arteta and Arsenal also are interested in the possibility of adding a more versatile wide forward. As far as I understand it, this would be in addition to a nine rather than instead of. I don't think a signing in this area is a certainty. Presumably, it will depend on what funds remain available and if there are any significant outgoings, but it's definitely one to watch. One to watch indeed, people. Sources close to Zubimendi reveal Arsenal truth, not in London, no medical. Apparently, we've decided to activate his 60 million release clause. We've all seen the UK media saying that he's going to have a medical when it's all done. Apparently, Cope, which I assume is a publication out of Spain, apparently contacted Zubamendi's entourage for an update amid claims of a medical and all that stuff. They insist the 26-year-old hasn't travelled to London and a medical with Arsenal hasn't been scheduled. The player is in San Sebastian in the Groves neighbourhood, and Zubamendi himself uploaded a photo of Zarola Beach on Wednesday afternoon. Apparently, the photo appears to be subtle yet direct response to the immediate rumours. Sources close to the midfielder ruled out him making a trip to London yesterday, but his move to the Emirates doesn't seem to be in danger, even though Real Madrid have been credited with an interest. Yesterday, just before the latest Zubimendi stuff arrived, we heard of Real Madrid hijack sort of stuff. And apparently Zubimendi's agent also manages Xabi Alonso now for obvious reasons, on top of the links with Real Madrid and Zubimendi and Alonso and Zubimendi. That probably adds to it. But it does say Arsenal is likely to be his next destination. The Telegraph said Arsenal are looking at Leroy Sane. Really? Arsenal have made inquiries over Leroy Sane as the German forward assesses his options this summer. I feel like every summer we hear this. We know he's out of contract. We know there's been several options. We know Mikel Arteta has worked with him at Manchester City. Apparently, Andrea Berta has been searching and working on several deals as the club search for a centre forward. Maybe Leroy Sane is option Z, if that makes sense. Like we got A, I don't know. A might be Nico Williams. B might be Jamie Gittins. C might be Rafael and anybody else. And then obviously, if worse comes to worse, maybe a Sane thing. Whether he wants to wait that long, I don't know. But I think it's not crisis management, but kind of like keeping your options open kind of thing, if that makes sense, people. Of course, thank the Lord, Raheem Sterling will return to Chelsea. Leipzig have put an asking price of 92.5 million on Benjamin Sesko as Premier League clubs line up to make bids for Sevilla striker. Arsenal have shortlisted the 21-year-old who has broken the 20-goal barrier this season in Germany, while clubs in England have been long-term admirers since he emerged at Red Bull Salzburg. Please smash the like button. Let me know your thoughts on if we can't get Gyokeres, would you go and get Sesko? But negotiations for Sesko are unlikely to be straightforward. Such is the price Leipzig have put on their striker. That market value would be comparable with strikers of a similar profile, such as Isaac, and that makes him more expensive than Gyokeres. I do think he's a good forward. I do think he's got a lot of potential. He was on Man United's radar, and he's still linked with them in Chelsea. We all know he signed a new long-term deal last season with Leipzig until 2029, and we hear fluctuations in relation to his release clause. Premier League clubs have been looking for strikers. They're all the range people. Seems like Man United have been linked. They're going to get Cunha. They've been linked with Liam Delap. They've been linked with Mbuemo. Good signings, people. Gyokeres, the 26-year-old Sweden international, is also on Arsenal's shortlist. The former commentary player could go for around 60 to 70 million. Now, obviously, Sesko's got longevity on his side, but Gyokeres is cheaper, quote unquote. We've gone over the Zubimendi stuff already. What do you lot make of the Sane links? What do you make of spending 92.5 million quid on a 21-year-old Sesko? It seems like Rodrigo could be staying at Real Madrid, folks. We have been linked with Rafael, Nico Williams, Mbuemo, and Gittins. Which one of the four would you go for? Rank them for me, people. For me, my first choice would be Mbuemo. I just think you get Gyokeres. I think Mbuemo can play across the front three. I'm all on that. I like Nico Williams. Think he's a bit overrated, but I like him. I see why we're linked with Jamie Gittins. I'm not convinced on Rafael. I'll be over the moon. I like him and whatnot, but another one that I think is like a shiny new toy. I think he's got all the raw tools to be a real player. If we can get it out of them, great. But which one would you go for? Bring me Mbuemo, man. And I mean, Arteta, we hear you want Nico Williams. Get that over the line then, innit? Arsenal's left wing priority is Nico Williams, but his wages are making it difficult to compete. Rafael and Gittins have also been looked at. That was reported yesterday. Arsenal have joined the race for Julian Alvarez, which we've seen. And Thierry Henry described him as the most complete number 9 out there. I would love him. I can't see that happening, but I would love it. Sesko will not feature in Leipzig's post-season trip to Brazil amid interest from Arsenal and I'm sure other clubs. Apparently, he's got a minor knee irritation, and the German club don't want to take any risk on what they consider as one of their most valuable assets, people. Let's see exactly why it's gone up to 100 million despite 80 million release clause. Maybe because they know Arsenal, Chelsea, Man United, and anyone else doesn't want to pay his release clause in full. Arsenal have done that before, where we'll pay a bit more if the terms are a bit more favorable, people. And Leipzig are winning because they ain't got European football. You sell Xavi Simons for decent money, you're laughing. RB Leipzig are holding out for a higher sum than Sesko's release clause because they want it to come with conditions. Blind reports that the Bundesliga will give more favorable terms to any team willing to pay more money for him. This could be adventurous to any club stretching to raise immediate funds to sign the player, although it's worth noting it will have little immediate impact on FFP situation due to the accountancy methods used by teams. For a club like United that does not want to pay with 80 million in one immediate lump sum, it may be seen as an attractive option to pay more in multiple installments. This equally applies to Chelsea and Arsenal. Leipzig are hoping a Premier League team will take up this option because they want to sell Sesko at a premium, people. Interesting. What do we make of that? Apparently Juventus have thrown their hat into the ring, people, for Gyokeres and actually Osimhen. And you know, how long before we get linked with Vlahovic? Osimhen, for what it's worth, is being linked with El Hilal. The biggest obstacle Juventus face in the pursuit of Gyokeres is the competition from Arsenal. The Gunners have made the Swede one of their top targets. It's claimed we've bidded 70 million, even though there are equal reports that have squashed that. Apparently, Arsenal reps were in attendance in the final. Coincidentally, Arsenal's women played Barcelona in Lisbon. I hope that was a time for Kroenke, and although I didn't see him there, but to meet with the sporting counterparts to get things done. We all know about Gyokeres' 100 million release clause. Apparently, Sporting are understood to be open to doing business for a fee in the region of 70 million. However, we have not been able to collaborate the claims that Arsenal made an offer. On the contrary, we've been explicitly told by sources close to the player that Arsenal have yet to make a bid. Fair play, man. And apparently he's rejected Man United. I mean, Gyokeres, if you don't sign for us, it's dark. We've gone over the Leroy Sane stuff. But apparently he's hoping to have 2 or 3 major signings completed early in the window, including Mendy and Gyokeres, said Jordan Davies, who works for The Sun. We've gone over the Skellys, the Magaleses, the Salibas, the Sakas, you know, Wanieris. We want to party. We want them all to sign new deals based on reports, in addition to obviously Mendy arriving. What's this? Apparently Garcia is close to a move to Newcastle, people. This has said he's not going to play for Barcelona under no circumstances. He's going to pick a Premier League team. So does that mean it's dark for Nick Pope then? I don't know. We all know about the 20 million release clause. I don't know. Do you lot feel we should be spending 20 million on a keeper that might be able to disrupt David Raya and take his spot? You never know. Or what we believe is going to come in, at least for a period, as second choice, where we should have a good budget. We've earned a lot of money being in the Premier League, finishing second, lol, and the champs. We kept the powder dry in January and the summer. Surely there's some money outgoings as well. I know Berta can flex his muscles, but Berta can only cook with the ingredients he's been given, really and truly. Apparently, we've exercised the option to extend Lokonga's deal by an additional year. So, yeah, he's got another year on his deal, probably still going to be sold in that regards. We've gone over that. Chelsea are doing work on a deal to sign Gittins, but Arsenal are still in the hunt for the 70 million rated Englishman. United intend to push for Mbeumo. You lot know me. I really want this guy at the carpet. And I want everybody, but apparently City have initiated talks to sign Ryan Cherky, one that I think is a market opportunity.
Like